What's good, people? It's Jagilsdorf coming back at you with another tutorial Tuesday for your liking, and today we are going to talk about subwoofers and why they might be important. Now, today we're going to talk about subwoofers and how you should be using them if you're on a budget. Today we're going to talk about subwoofers. Period. Yeah, so if you didn't notice, today we're talking about subwoofers. If you don't know what a subwoofer is, you should figure that one out. No. So it's essentially just designed to be below 100 hertz. The sub meaning below, and then 100 hertz is just below 100, I think. I don't know. That's just what I think of when I think of a subwoofer, is those lower end frequencies. So why would you want that in your mix, whether you're making music or videos or whatever it is? You gotta use the subwoofer to your advantage and make sure it's not part of your disadvantage. For example, I have playlists, as I've talked about thousands of times, and one of my lo-fi sleep playlists, I've rejected submissions because of the fact they have too much low end, and it's overwhelming, and it's not comfortable to listen to with headphones. It's not something that I would really want to listen to while I sleep per se, because that could wake me up with the way it works. If you have a really punchy kick in a song, that doesn't make me wake up. It makes me want to dance on the dance floor. So there's give and take as to why you would want, a lot of deep end and not a lot of deep end. Now at the end of this video, I'm going to play a frequency sweep from 30 hertz to I think like 250 hertz is what I made it. I made it using the Sonic app. Definitely check it out, it's free, but I use it all the time and it's very, very helpful to just kind of do a very quick test. I'll link it up here and I'll put it in the description as well, and use it later on to test things, or just download Sonic and do it yourself. Whatever is easier for you, you have the option. So essentially, when I think of subwoofers, I think of what my current setup is first, and then I'll talk about like what you're really supposed to do if you have the money to do it, but I don't. So I use with what I have. Now, my first pair of speakers that I had were these. They're a Logitech speaker, that's the model. It's nice. It was good for what it is, and when you don't have a lot of money, that's a good setup. I really enjoyed the sound I got from that system. And if you don't have the money to go get a system and you're considering getting a pair of monitors, that's great and all, but if you get a pair of monitors, realize that they're not going to have a lot of low end. They're not going to get very low. Typically, a pair of monitors are going to need to be paired with a sub. So whatever your monitor price is, say your budget's $200, you're gonna have to get a pair. Have to get like a pair of $100 and then a $100 sub to really, make it a nice complete sound. You need that 2.1. Really, I guess it depends on what you're making, but I would say yes, you need that 2.1. I guess especially if you don't have a graphic equalizer. So if you're using a lot of non-DAW or DAW-less work, and you're not paying attention to that low end, that below 100 hertz, especially that below 40 hertz, you might not hear it on your headphones even. So you could have clicks and pops and thumps and it's not going to sound very good. And it's going to really distort your mix, and then maybe you'll mix down and you'll listen to it and be like, why is it so quiet? Well, it's because you need some sort of low cut or high pass filter to really just tear down that 40 hertz and below. I believe vinyl used to cut at the 40 hertz mark on purpose because the bass would be so loud that the needle would jump, which is why a lot of older people don't like a lot of bassiest rap music nowadays, because they weren't used to it. There's no familiarity. It's all new. This is all that you wouldn't be able to do that before, The music's changed because the equipment's been able to change. So you got to think about that. But anyway, back to my 2.1 system I have here. Now I have a pair of Mackie CR3s, and I love these monitors. They were like $100. I got the gold edition because they look nice and I love them. Plus, I don't think the green ones look good at all. And aesthetics are everything when you're trying to build a vibe, So when you make your setup here, consider how you're going to have your low end. What is the frequency cutoff of these speakers? Well, these speakers are rated to cut off at that hertz. I notice, I don't even know what that number is. I put that in there after the fact. I noticed that it starts to really drop out around 80 hertz. Really, anything below 80 hertz, I can barely hear, and that's a lot. That's a lot of frequencies that are just gone. So I needed a subwoofer. So I had that old stereo system that I talked about in the beginning of the video, and that's what I use. And the reason why I use it is because I want to catch those low ends. That subwoofer, it actually acts as a subwoofer, and it can catch down to like 30 hertz. I can hear very low frequencies, and it goes all the way up to like 240, 250. That video I play, I turned off my Mackie monitors and just turned on the sub, and it goes all the way through. So how did I set it up? It was really simple. That system comes with a pair of passive speakers and then the sub. So you just unplug the passive speakers, now you just have a sub, and the input is a 3.5 millimeter audio jack that I just plug directly into the headphone port of my Scarlett 2i2. Then I have the Scarlett 2i2 wired to the Mackie monitors using the 1/4-inch TRS cables in the back directly into the Mackie. You could probably use something else if you wanted to. If you didn't want to use the 1/4-inch, I probably could just use like a splitter and use like the 3.5 millimeter TRS to, you know, the RCA, and use the RCA input on the back. That's something you could do as well. But the reason why I like this setup is because now if I control the headphone knob on the Scarlett 2i2, I'm actually controlling the amount of bass in my mix while I'm listening. Now here's where we start to get to the problem with doing it this way. There's no frequency cutoff built into this subwoofer, and the professional way to do it is to have something that would have some sort of cutoff. You would need, you want like a reference microphone, and then you want to know what the standard EQ curve of something that's playing versus, and then you compare that curve of what's playing in your output to what the microphone's picking up. And ideally you want those curves to match. So the problem with having a mix like this is my normal Mackie monitors have their own curve, and then this speaker has its own curve, and somewhere around like probably like the 200 to 80, because remember these cut off at 80, but that subwoofer can go to like 250 at least. So from that 80 to 250, the subwoofer's producing more sound than it really needs to be. I just need the 80 and below. So that's where you're really supposed to set up your subs. Honestly, I will be mixing and I'll turn my subs off, or I'll turn them on, and the difference is so clear. I was literally just playing with the drum pad and just had like a Bluebird kit on Logic Pro, and I was just drumming around, and all of a sudden I'm like, that kick is not thumpy enough, and I turn up the volume on my Mackies, and I'm still playing, I'm like, it's still not enough, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I push the button on the Logitech, and this subwoofer turns on, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you gotta get that low end in, you know what I mean, you gotta get that low end in. If you don't get the low end in, then I don't know what you're doing with your mix, man. Like, I really don't. And as a little gem to toss you here, cut at the 30. Throw a high cut, or I'm sorry, a high pass or a low cut filter at the 30, and make it really sharp at the end of your EQ. Just put a cut. Just cut it out. You don't need to hear anything below 30 hertz. I mean, you could do 40. I do 30, but you really don't. Anything below that, it's noise. It's not good. It's muddy. It's dirty. I'm telling you, I love bass. Love it. But if you don't do that cut, it can sometimes be the loudest thing by decibel. It'll be the loudest thing in your mix, which will cause your normalizer to shrink everything down. And now it just sounds quieter. So you add all this bass thinking that it's gonna sound good, and then it ends up sounding like trash because your normalizer cuts everything down. Or you have phase issues because you added 8 basses on one track instead of just figuring out how to mix one bass. I've done all these mistakes. I've done them all. And I'm probably still doing some now, and I don't even realize it. So that's just what I do now. That is just my current setup, and I've noticed my mixes just sound better across different devices. That's the point of monitors, to reference. I want to be able to hear the monitors and know what it's gonna sound like without any change or any color. So when I do my field testing, which I'll link a video about field testing, I really wanna make sure it sounds good, or at least accurate, you know, because not all my music sounds good. I listen to some of my old songs, I'm like, that's garbage, who wrote this? And I'll be like, oh crap, that was me. I literally forget that I write certain songs. I'll be playing a song on Spotify, I'll just have my Spotify on shuffle, and I'll be like, wow, this is terrible and annoying, and it'll be me. Or vice versa, I'll be like, ooh, this is good, who is this? And it's literally me. I'm at the point where I've already written so many songs I just forget. Because the lo-fi beats, I'm just pumping them out, you know? It's playlist pleasing. It's just to get some extra cash so I can keep making some more beats and more videos for you guys. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. Check out all the other videos that I got in store for you in playlists and links and all that jazz below. And just be mindful that the end of this video I'm gonna play in a second here is a frequency sweep. So if you're wearing headphones, please lower your volume. If you have subwoofers, go plug up into your subwoofers, but lower the volume and turn it up. And then as it sweeps, as it goes from 30 hertz, as it gets up to like that 80 hertz range, you're gonna notice it's gonna start to get loud. And what you want to pay attention to when you're listening to a sweep, any dips. Sometimes there'll just be a dip in the audio. That's your speakers. That's not the video. That's not the sound that I'm playing for you. That's your speakers. This subwoofer setup I have right now, at 125, it just gets quiet, and then it'll get loud again at about 135. As I'm sweeping up, it'll just start to duck down to practically quiet, and yeah, then it'll come right back up, and I'm like, okay, well that's weird. And that's a problem with the speaker. That's the difference between a $40 subwoofer and a $400 subwoofer, is how clean that sweep will end up being. So that's a great way to test your subs. It's a great way to test your speakers and all that. So let me know in the comments below what your frequency cutoff is on your current system. Thanks for watching, guys. And another